Governor. Linda, that was very inspiring. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next special guest speaker, the former United States Senator from Pennsylvania, the Honorable Rick Santorum. Please welcome.
It is so great to be back in Iowa. I am actually on vacation, and when I was asked to come and speak here today, I talked to my wife, and she said, well, Rick, it's right in the middle of our 2-week vacation. And I said, well, Chuck Grassley's always told me that I should vacation in Iowa more often, so here I am, spending my vacation in Iowa, and I'm honored and happy to be here. So I will admit, I'm not going to be here long. I have a book that I'm going to be signing, which you'll be hearing about in a minute, because I want to talk to you about what's in that book. We'll be signing that right outside these doors over here after the speech, and then if you can't make the book signing, I'll be at Matt Schultz's reception, my friend Matt Schultz, later this afternoon. So hope I get a chance to see everybody as I spend some time here. It's been great. I feel like I'm coming back home in many respects. I spent a lot of time here, as you know, in the last couple of years ago, and I had a wonderful experience. I can tell you that it changed me, changed our family. We have a very special place in our heart for the people of the state of Iowa. The last time I was talking to you in a group anywhere near this size was just down the road at the Stony Creek Inn on caucus night. And that night, I got up and I talked about my grandfather. And I talked about my grandfather's funeral. When I was a young man, that the first person I'd ever seen who had died was my grandfather, and I knelt next to his casket, and he was a coal miner for 50 years, worked till he was 72 years old in the mines. And I remember kneeling and looking at his hands, these enormous hands of a coal miner who literally, as an immigrant, dug his way for freedom and opportunity for me and my family. And the reason I talked about that night, and I continue to talk about it, was because, to me, even though he wasn't a Republican, he was a dang Democrat. But that hard work, responsibility, take responsibility for yourself and create a better life for the next generation, that immigrant experience, that blue-collar experience, to me, that is the Republican Party. You know, years ago when I was growing up, the Republican Party was the country club set. It was the corporate set. It was the 1%. If you look at the surveys right now, those folks aren't voting Republican anymore, ladies and gentlemen. The 1% are not Republicans by and large. The areas that we used to win, the rich suburban areas, they're not Republican anymore. As I crisscrossed Iowa from Decorah to Red Oak to Rock Rapids to Burlington, you know the Republicans I met were hard-working people. Folks who were not big corporate executives, people who worked for a living on wages, small business people trying to piece things together, who believed in the American dream, who believed in work and responsibility. That's the Republican Party. That's who we are. But let's be honest, folks, that's not how we talk as Republicans. That's not our message as the Republican establishment would have us dictate. No, our message is all about corporatism and business. I remember at the convention, I spoke on a Tuesday night at the National Convention, and I walked into the arena, and there were placards on all the seats. You know what the placards read? We built that. You may recall President Obama made a faux pas by saying, oh, you know, business people, they didn't build that. So what did we do? We went out and spent an entire night at the convention bringing up small business person after large business person, one after another, talking about how they built their business. Not one time did we bring out a business owner and a worker and talk about how they built their business. We can win every businessman's vote and still lose elections by landslides. We need workers if we're going to win. And we need to start talking to workers if we're going to win. But that's who we are. That's who the workers in the Republican Party are. That's who the base of the Republican Party are. You look at any of the surveys. But as far as a lot of workers in America are concerned, we don't care about them because we don't talk about them. You see, if our message is, which it has been for quite some time, cut taxes, particularly focused on higher income individuals to create growth and opportunity, balance the budget, and cut benefits. Now, if you're part of the 80% of Americans who don't get welfare benefits and aren't the top income earners, where are you in this picture of the future of America? You see, what is the most favorite word of every single person in America?
Freedom.
Their own name. And when Republicans get up and we deliver a message and we paint this beautiful picture of growth and economic prosperity, but as we paint that picture, they don't see themselves in this picture, then we're not going to win elections. I wrote this book, Blue Collar Conservative, and I'm traveling the country talking to candidates, campaigning for candidates, and encouraging them to start talking about average working Americans. Stop talking about Wall Street and corporations and business. Yes, we want to be the party of growth, but we also want to be the party that's pro-worker as well as pro-growth. So you say, well, how do we do this? Well, it's very simple. One of the reasons I think we did as well as we did, not just here in Iowa, but in 10 other states which we won and others we came very close, is we went out and talked about the core things that connect to average working Americans. Things like energy and keeping energy costs down, not just so your bills are lowered, but also to create jobs in energy, but also to create manufacturing jobs because lower energy costs result in a better opportunity for manufacturers to be profitable. And I went out with a whole plan on manufacturing, how we have to bring jobs made in America back in the lexicon of the Republican Party. And we need not just the rhetoric to say we want things made in America, we need policies that make that possible. Americans can compete. We can compete with higher wages because we have better talent, we have better patent protections, we have cheaper energy, but we have higher taxes and higher regulation and higher litigation costs. And that's something government can't do something about, and that's something Republicans should be talking about if we want to be successful in getting working men and women's votes in this country. We need to talk about manufacturing, we need to talk about energy, we need to talk about construction, rebuilding the infrastructure of America. We can do that by shifting resources, not no taxes, but shifting resources from the waste and the excess of this bloated federal budget and state budgets and start putting people back to work. You start talking about jobs. Do you know that 70% of Americans don't have college degrees? But if you listen to our rhetoric, you can assume that they all do, because that's the jobs we're talking about. But we need to have good paying jobs, family sustaining jobs, in areas where folks who don't go to college can also raise a family. It connected with people. I'll give you a little statistic during the campaign. I had a meeting with Governor Romney's people shortly after the campaign, and they shared a survey with me, which sort of stunned me. But I noticed that all the exit polls were always wrong, and that they would come out about 6 o'clock, and they would always underestimate how well I did. And they started noticing that too, state after state, that we did better than what the exit polls showed. And so they finally started, we didn't do polling, we didn't have any money to do polling, but they started asking the question not just who you plan to vote for, but when are you planning to vote? And what happened startled me. They showed me a poll from the last state the campaign was in. And if you were going to vote before 6 o'clock, Governor Romney and I were tied. If you were going to vote after 5 o'clock, if you were going to vote after 5 o'clock, I was ahead by 21 points.